All right, good morning, everyone. It is here right at 9:18 a.m. here on Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. I do hereby call this ad hoc committee of the Industrial Development Board to order, as it appears we do have a quorum. Second item on the agenda is public comment period. Public comment period. The Industrial Development Board holds a designated public comment period at each meeting. Members of the public in attendance may provide comments to the board or its committees during such designated time. Members of the public are allotted 2 minutes for public comment. No advanced registration is required. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to speak today? All right, seeing as there is no one here from the public wishing to speak today, I will move to close the public comment period. Moving on to item number 3, approval of prior ad hoc meeting minutes. I will give everyone a couple of minutes to review those. Please keep in mind we have minutes from the May 8th meeting that were not approved in June because I was the only one here at the June meeting. And last month we did not approve those at last month's meeting. So we do need to approve May 8th, as you see here, and also the meeting minutes from last month on September 11th. I'll give everyone a minute to take a look at those, and I would say let's do separate approvals on those. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the May 8th, 2024 minutes of the Ad Hoc Committee of the Industrial Development Board. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion properly second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Legal, I'm assuming I need to say aye on these minutes.
Since it's 3 of you,
Yeah.
the 2 of them
Okay.
is enough for.
That's enough. Oh, got you. Okay. All right. Motion carried. Thank you. Let's move to the minutes from last month's meeting on September 11th. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
All right. Thank you, Board Member Haston. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Board Member Wright. So we have a proper second motion. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. All right, motion carries. Minutes, so the May 8th and September 11th minutes of the Ad Hoc Committee from 2024 are both approved. All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, small business grant discussion. We're still going to continue working on housing as well, so that's not something that that's still a focus, certainly. But one item that just timing-wise kind of lined up is this is something that I've asked Jamari to work on earlier this year. And this is because of this board, this ad hoc committee, and also this overall board's desire to do more with small business. So wanted to take Jamari, obviously with his expertise, and I'll turn it over to him shortly. But want to give him an opportunity to kind of talk to us about what he's seeing with small business. That's number one. And then present this to the ad hoc committee. So this is not something that the ad hoc committee needs to vote on today. If we want to do this, this would come from required board approval. But this is using funds that we've generated this year through the bond fees that we've done. So I talked to you all about this, back in January. When we did this, like, look, let's do some stuff with housing. That's great, but also let's generate revenue. So this is an opportunity. So this is not a Metro small business grant. This would be funds directly coming from the Industrial Development Board.
Correct.
So we can talk more about that here shortly, but that's kind of where it is. Thought this made sense to kind of put this in front of us because obviously there would be an application process with some lead time. So the sooner we get this rolling, the sooner folks can know about it and they can apply, and we can help some small businesses. All right, with that, Jamari, I'll turn it over to you to kind of give us the landscape on what you're hearing, and then kind of talk through it with us about some of these small business grants And lastly, really quickly, before I turn it over to you, the one thing I would also share with both of you is prior to your terms on the board, we did do small business grants with Metro. We had a fast track, basically per employee job grant, and also a blighted property grant. Okay, Jamari can talk more about that. So there's still a budget for that, but there's some challenges with the criteria with that. So again, this specific grant is kind of tailored towards, as Jamari and I talked, really trying to help small businesses. And this again would be funds that we generated this year through our bond fees and closing fees that we can use for small business grants.
Great.
All right, Jamar, I'll turn it over to you with that.
So, give you a quick overview of kind of what we're seeing in the landscape of business and small business as well. Small businesses are impacted by the same things that large businesses are impacted by. So we've got some global trends that are happening around tightening labor markets, increased cost of supplies, inflation in general are things that are impacting small businesses. Another thing that's specifically focused here on Nashville, and I think we're seeing this on a national trend as well, we've talked about affordable housing and how it's impacting individuals that live in Nashville. Rising commercial leases and commercial rates are also impacting small businesses. We're constantly hearing of stories of some of our favorite restaurants.
There's one that just closed in 12 South.
Constantly closing due to rising commercial rates as the city continues to grow. And when you have increases in rates, some of your fixed costs, some of your investments into your business, you're having to put on the back burner. And so that's the background for this program here. A $5,000 to $10,000 grant is kind of the idea that we're starting with, where a small business can write up a project, tell us what they want to invest into their business, and use that as that one-time investment to try to continue to build the business and growth. When you're seeing all these other things increasing costs, I think the example I've shared with Nigel is if you're a small business and you need to improve your registers, that's a pretty hefty cost that right now you're probably putting on the back burner if your register's still working. It just doesn't have Apple Pay, Google Pay, all the new touches that you actually need to be more, to bring in more customers. And so that's something that is a relatively decent cost for a small business, but they're putting that on the back burner because they got to pay higher lease rates or commercial property rates, property taxes, increased in raw goods and services that they're buying. So those are kind of the same things that we're seeing on a national trend for large businesses. Small businesses are also seeing that as well. And so that's what this program is trying to alleviate. Obviously, I think Nigel mentioned roughly, have you mentioned the number, the 50? Or?
Not yet, yeah.
So the idea is to cap this at $50,000. Finance and the full committee is going to talk about the total allotment that you all have in your coffers right now. But cap this at a total payout of $50,000 with grants ranging between $5,000 and $10,000 to kind of start that conversation.
And again, that's essentially what we've raised this year.
Right, okay.
And again, this is a draft. You see the document says draft in front of you. Yours is not. And the application also has a draft. So these are starting points for you all to discuss, work through the different criteria. But this kind of touches every single thing that you need to think about for the most part. And I'm going to default to legal if there's anything that I have missed in this, because legal is still working through the review process of this. But we're in the draft stage of this, and wanted to get your eyes on this and have an open dialogue.
Yep, so again, this draft, so
Okay,
legal
right.
still has to stamp this, but felt comfortable enough that it was ready to present to the board again, because if we're really trying to help small businesses, there will be some lead time involved, right, with the applications, and certainly reviewing those. So we want to go ahead and get this rolling. And again, this is consistent with what I shared. You know,
Right.
we're using funds that we generated for really great projects, candidly, to now do more great projects, hopefully. And Jamar, so I'll turn it over to you. If you can, kind of walk us through this and talk to us about, first, the eligibility piece, why those numbers, and maybe some of the challenges with the current Metro Small Business Grant and how this kind of fits that void.
Absolutely. So let me talk about the Metro grant first, then I'll work through the eligibility and why these numbers. So Metro has $250,000 in our small business grant pool. That pool touches on two different programs. One is, as Nigel mentioned, is a cash grant where a small business that's hiring 10 employees over a 12-month period, they tell us the 12 months, can qualify for $500 per job. The 10 is the minimum. They can go up to as high as they want with a cap of $50,000. The caveat to this program is these wages, in order for their job to be eligible, the wage is around $55,600, so $55,600 roughly, which is for a small business, we're asking you to put roughly $550,000 on your payroll for $5,000 worth of grant funding. Not an apples to apples match, not really an incentive, but if a small business is already hiring, it is just another little check that they can bring in and again touch something that's small that they were pushing off for other reasons. So it's historically has been used to really help small businesses grow. Right now, based on the current terms and the structure of the program, it has some limitations based on that wage threshold. The other program that we have is a property investment program where based on certain economic measures, we've gone in and highlighted certain census tracts to that are eligible. And if your business is located in an eligible census tract, you can apply for this grant, which this is a matching grant of up to $50,000 for property investment and improvement onto the property that either you own or you lease. And leasing gets into a weird calculation, but something that we can definitely talk to them about. The caveat to this program is that property has to, at time of application, be valued at less than $1 million.
Okay.
I
We're
appreciate
gonna get
the
your
laughs.
numbers in a minute. Yeah.
I appreciate the laughs because that has been our biggest hurdle, right? Finding commercial property in Nashville that's worth less than $1 million that you actually want to put money into.
The whole building or just the space?
If it is a lease, it is broken down based on a percentage of the building. But most of these individuals who have historically applied own their building. And so, yes, the whole building, and you can see why that becomes very difficult in our current market situation for the expense of real estate here in Nashville, specifically commercial real estate.
So you mentioned before about being in certain areas. It fall like the hub zone areas.
Not necessarily hub zones. We look at several different economic criteria. You can, we have a pretty long link, but I'll tell you the quickest way to get to it.
Okay.
If you Google, and this is mostly for those listening on YouTube, if you Google Nashville growth incentives, you will see on that page the small business programs that I am talking about, the application process and the requirements for each one. And on that page, there's also a link for a map where you can go in and plug in your address. And if your address falls within one of the highlighted areas on that map, you qualify.
Oh, okay.
So those are two programs that are currently on the books. We have $250,000 sitting in those programs. We're just had a conversation in North Nashville with several business owners along Jefferson Street. Councilmember Vo has reached out about some constituents she has. So we're trying to get the word out as much as possible, understanding the limitations to the requirements of those programs, and trying to help as many as we possibly can.
And to be clear, those would come before this board.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If there's any. And I can just tell you, when we did those, obviously the market has changed really. We've done, several of us do, all of us, I guess, in this room really do real estate here in Nashville. And
Drastically has changed.
yeah, I mean, it's a big difference in a couple years. So
Yeah.
I can tell you all, though, that from my recollection, this board was very supportive of doing those small business grants in the past.
And
So
once they're funded through the budget process, which the $250,000 is the funding, the only approval process once they go through the application process is the IDB. So you all are the last stop for that grant program, for both of those grant programs. I was going to mention one more thing. The last application that has come before this board, I believe, was in 2017.
Wow. Wow.
So So again, this brings us back, and I'll turn this over back to you, Jamar. But this brings us back. You all understand the background,
Yes.
right? So there's funds there That's, the criteria is what it is, and Jamari's working on everything he can do with that. In the interim, because these are our funds,
Right.
right? We don't necessarily have to have those same criteria. So when Jamari and I specifically, over the last year that we've had conversations on this, it's, hey, we want to fit the void, right?
Right.
To Jamari's point, if someone needs to buy a new POS system, this is something that could help a true small business.
Right.
So with that, Jamari, talk to us about kind of how the eligibility criteria.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that, and this is one area where I wished board member Latanya was here to give her viewpoint on small business, the SBA, and how they rank small businesses. Some of you may or may not know the SBA has a ranking system for small businesses based on the industry in which they work in.
Yeah, the SIC, well, it used to be SIC codes, NAICS.
Yeah,
the small.
your next codes.
Been 30 years, yeah, so I can help with that, yeah.
To put that into perspective, a manufacturer, according to the SBA, that is considered small is 500 employees. I don't think we agree
I was getting ready to point that out. I'm glad you're talking about it.
Going to be that 500 is the target we're looking for here, and so two things that have been taken into account with this number that I have put before you today, which is 25 full-time employees. And I need that to be or, which I think is a statement from our legal department, or less than $1 million in annual revenue, either or on both of those. The 25, because we're capping this at $50,000, at most, if you do the 5, you're going to have 10 grants.
Okay.
There's a lot of small businesses in Nashville. So your eligibility criteria are going to be used to kind of funnel that down, so that not everybody starts to throw applications in, where we end up in a backlog of just going through applications before we ever get a chance to actually put money into the market. So the 25 jobs is a really good threshold for small business here in town, and then the 1 million in revenue is another really good threshold that really shows that a small business, that you really are a small business. Once you hit that 1 million, you're able to go to a bank and get a lot of funding and access to different capital that isn't, that $5,000 isn't going to really move a lot of your needle once you hit $1 million in revenue.
Right.
The second criteria, obviously, you have to be in Davidson County. Using funds from Davidson County, you got to be in Davidson County.
Makes sense.
Yes.
The third
Definitely.
criteria is business type. So the small business grant has some limiting factors in certain industries. So
The Metro
small business, the ECD small business grant has certain industries that are blocked. A true pure retail establishment like a small knick-knack store would not qualify as a small business because of that industry's kind of a local service business, the way we view it. Right now, we have this open to all industries with a focus on innovative and high growth potential sectors. Again, this is a draft for you all to kind of think through and kind of give you a starting point for conversation. You want to, again, at the most, you're going to be able to do 10 grants.
Right.
So you want to keep this a little open so that you get, good quality applicants, but you also want to probably narrow this in a little bit on things that you all feel passionate about. And I'd be glad to share with the board our target growth industries if you all would like to tap in and align with those.
Do you have a couple off the top of your head?
Sure, I can give them to you. We have healthcare, health tech. We have financial services, fintech. We have the music business. We have construction, medical diagnostic, and I think that's it. I feel like I'm missing one.
Engineering? Anything
Business services.
Professional services.
Professional services, business services, which incorporates our corporate offices, our R&D facilities, all of those.
Okay.
So retail.
Retail is not a target growth industry because retail is usually when you're working in economic community development, target growth industries are industries that bring revenue into the market. A local service retail just circles dollars within the market.
It's not new money.
It's not new money. The new money grows the economy.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking when we start talking about services and the revenue is $1 million. Different industries, a construction company could do one project. They could build one house or 2 or 3 houses, and it would be over $1 million just
Absolutely.
like that. So it's going to really narrow down, because you're talking about companies that do innovative growth. That means they have to have a lot of seed capital. Their revenues are probably going to be higher.
And again,
Yeah.
so a lot of those companies that are in that seed phase aren't
Right.
really generating
Startups.
revenue.
Yeah.
So
You're not generating money
they're
yet.
not really
Okay,
generating
so
revenue.
we're kind of looking at startups, kind of.
So not necessarily startups, because the next one we'll talk about as well. Again, this is just the starting point.
Okay.
When you're talking about construction, you're absolutely right. The projects can get very large, and so you hit that 1 million, which is why it is 25. And right now it says it should be 25 or less than $1 million. So if
okay.
you are under 25 employees, you qualify. If you're under less than $1 million in annual revenue, you qualify.
Okay.
So if you hit 30 employees, but you're making 900, which is crazy to think that you're
That won't
30
even
employees.
math when we work on that.
I would really love to see your books because I want to know how you're making that work, and are you paying a living wage? That's another question. So we're trying to make that an or. That will be an or my recommendation to the board should be an or.
Right.
But yeah, so that gives you that leeway for a small business that's in a high revenue generating industry to still qualify.
Yeah, because if you're over, I would say 10, maybe even over 5, in a professional environment, you're doing over $1 million in revenue, just like that. Yeah.
In those environments, how much is $5,000 to $10,000 going to move the needle?
No, I won't do anything. So yeah.
So that's part of this.
Right, the elimination. Yeah.
That's right. I mean,
Trying to drill it down, and again, the most you're going to be able to do at that 5 to 10 range is 10 grants across all of Davidson County. So there's a lot of small businesses
that are just
across all of
really
Davidson
starting
County.
out, yeah.
And again, so you want your criteria to really kind of hone in. You want it broad enough that you're going to get enough applicants, but you also want to make sure you're trying to limit the reach because you don't have a lot of opportunity.
That makes sense, yes. That makes sense.
Moving on to the fourth one, and again, so the business type, I have it open to all industries as a recommendation. You all can fine tune that and narrow that in. If you, again, want to align to those target industries for the city, you're absolutely welcome to do that. This is just an opening volley, if you will. Moving on to the fourth criteria, you have operational history. Most small businesses, pre that 3-year mark, have a higher fail rate. And because we are using funds that are generated through doing the business of the government, we want to make sure that this business has some viability to it. And so I have a recommendation of at least 3 years of operation in order to apply. So this will limit somebody from saying, oh, hey, they got a grant. I'm going to open up a business today and apply.
Right, yeah, there you go.
So we need to, again, this is a part of the weeding out or the narrowing of the focus to try to make sure we're intentional about truly helping a small business that is in need today.
And 3 years means they're viable. I mean,
Yeah.
they're operating. They've got some history.
That's
there.
a good rule of thumb. And then the last piece is they need to put a clear financial need and viable plan for use of the funds. They need to be able to articulate that need and how it's going to impact their business and growth for the future. So those are just, again, that's the 5 that I'm starting off with in this draft form for you all to kind of take in, sleep with, make recommendations on. Legal's going to also continue to review and see what makes sense there as well.
What were the 5 growth?
6.
Healthcare, fintech, construction, professional services. I missed a couple.
Music.
The music business, and you said you had construction?
Professional services, 1, 2, 3, 4.
You
I
just
had
go
5.
through them all.
Yeah, I'll go through them
I
again.
only have 5.
So we've got healthcare and health tech, that's a consolidated industry.
Okay.
Financial services and fintech, a consolidated industry. So when I put tech on there, that's the IT component of that industry.
Correct.
The music business, and there's also a music IT component to that as well. Construction, medical diagnostic,
That's what I missed. Yeah.
and then professional or business services, professional services. Corporate operations, kind of a catch-all R&D.
Right.
I mean, if we're looking at standard, just hearing those, I mean, that seems to be a great place to start. because that seems like that would open us up to have enough businesses, but, I mean, it feels that, again, if we're trying to get new money, new dollars, it makes sense.
Right. Is it open for question now or discussion?
Go ahead.
Just taking my many years of experience as a business, doing grants, 8A certified, Hub Zone, all those things. I want to make sure that our application, I'm looking at time and resources to put in writing a grant. I want to make sure for the amount of money, $5,000, $10,000 is not going to move the needle. We're talking, but any money is great for a small business. Trust me, this could be new computers, this could be software, this could be advertisement for that company. But we don't want to make it so difficult to where it's like 3-4 pages and takes them 5 hours.
Did you see the application? It's pretty.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's on the back here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a
great.
2-page application,
Yeah,
so
this is-
we're well within your three page limit.
Oh yeah. There we go. 3 pages or less. Beautiful. Thank you. So yeah, I think that it's great to have this, and I think we'll get a lot of applicants. I've applied for innovative grants, and those are a little harder to actually word and judge as to the innovation. I'm going to have I guess the board or committee here will be the one that will review.
So
grants.
further down the grant program, you
Okay.
have eligibility criteria, you've got the grant amount, the application process, then the selection criteria.
Right.
And so that is listing out kind of some early ideas, again, as a starting point
Okay.
on where the board could go.
Okay.
We've got innovation, which is just, is this a unique idea? Buying a POS system isn't truly revolutionary, right?
Right.
But that is important for a business trying to move into the 21st century. So grading that business based on, the uniqueness for them
Right.
could be something that this board could look at. We talk about impact. What is the impact going to do to the ability for that company to continue to grow within the local economy, create jobs, the feasibility of the company and the business plan that they put in place for use of those grant funds, and the financial health. Again, that financial health piece shows that there's going to be viability post the grant.
Right.
Then we have the review process where the applicants will be screened based on the eligibility criteria that the board agrees to. And then an evaluation of a panel of experts. And so this is to your most recent question. The panel of experts, and had a good conversation with the chair recently. My idea of panel of experts is the Industrial Development Board. Like you said, you've got 30 years of experience of going through this process. You've got folks that are in the real estate business. You've got people that are serial entrepreneurs on this board. You've got former council members. You've got lawyers on this board. I feel like I'm missing some folks. You got LaTanya, who's got all her years of experience with the SBA. So you've got a board built of experts.
Correct.
My recommendation is to have you all serve as that board. You all could also bring in a third-party board as a panel of experts to review them as well. Completely up to how the board wants to move.
Yeah, and I was kind of thinking, like engineering, housing, I understand. Music, medical, not so much. So when I look and I read these applications and they're talking about things in the medical field or the music industry, I can gauge on a business level, is that innovative, but not in great detail towards that industry. So that's what I was kind of thinking about, if we're actually looking at the applications, we might have to bring someone in and say, hey, you're in the healthcare industry. What are your thoughts on this? I don't know if that'll be appropriate or.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, here's what I would say
Yeah.
to that. Certainly, I don't think here's what I would say that totally agree with you. But I don't necessarily know that we need to be experts, on the ins and outs of the details of the business. I mean, we approve stuff, and we're not necessarily experts on that.
Correct.
But I think to Jamari's point, what he's saying is we've got enough broad experience of people on this board, business sense, and certainly we care because we're volunteering on this board,
Correct.
right? That we can do this. The other thing, certainly keep in mind, the applications will be going to Jamari.
Okay.
Not coming to us directly.
Oh, okay.
So Jamari will get the applications, and so we've also got his expertise in the Metro team to rely on as well.
Okay, great. So you kind of narrow. So let's say if you got 200 of them in, you won't send all 200s to us. You're like, okay.
To answer that question,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go based on the eligibility criteria that you all lay out and weed down that 200.
Okay.
I assume through the grant process, I've seen people don't necessarily check all the boxes.
Correct.
And that'll be a way of weeding through that 200 to get it to a manageable number for the board to actually sit down and understand and review and grade. Something else, as you're talking about these business types, if you want to lean into those industries that I've talked about, bringing in experts as a third-party panel to say, hey, does this make sense for the healthcare industry? Again, something you all can definitely do. You've had several companies come before you in these spaces recently, so there's a plethora of knowledge. We've got the Healthcare Council, we've got the Tech Council and others, that the Nashville Chamber that we can lean on, the Black Chamber and others that you can lean on and say, hey, we want to bring expert to kind of talk about this and grade some of these. So that's something that if you all want to, you can definitely do that.
Yeah, because I would like to evenly disperse. Well, I shouldn't say just evenly disperse, but I don't want to be heavy in one industry and then this industry doesn't get anything because maybe there's something I don't understand, or I look at one more favorably because I'm in that industry and I understand it more. So just a while.
No, something to
real
think about.
balance.
And
Yeah,
part of
yeah.
it too will depend on the applications.
Right.
We don't know yet because we
Yeah.
haven't, put it out.
But this is great, though. This is awesome. I'm ready to spend the money. I really am. This
So
is
one
great, yeah.
only thing I would say to that is, I'm all for bringing it in if we need to, but I also don't want us to get into, from my standpoint, where we're getting like way too much in the weeds on it, and we're getting experts because we're about to give this small business maybe $5,000, and that adds like months and months to the process. Because the whole idea behind this is let's get money into people on the ground that are starting great businesses that need a jolt now.
I was thinking more of line of just maybe in the music or health, getting maybe some information that's from someone or some source of what is innovative. And that's it. Not for them to review the applications.
Okay.
But what they think is innovative. Then once we start reviewing, we can kind of compare what we have.
And Jamari can
That's
get
all.
that in.
Not reviewing it. Not calling an expert for every application. No, that would be too. No.
Yeah. We're on the same page.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you have any more questions?
No, I'll get off the floor. I'll let my.
Board Member Hastings,
Yeah,
questions?
my one comment is, I think I would recommend that we not do it as a grant, but as a loan, so that we can recycle these funds. And or if it's a minimal amount of interest, so we can grow that pot of money that we can then lend out. I think part of the goal is to grow the pot of money that we can help spread again, and assuming they're viable businesses, which they should be, if we're approving the grant or approving this amount, 5 to 10 grand is not much to pay back, even if it's 1, 2, 3, 4% interest.
So something just around the management of loans. Usually Metro outsources that because that's a very time-intense process of managing monthly payments on a loan, even at this scale. Historically, we've gone to CDFIs and others to manage that. They charge an administration fee on top of managing the loan program. So just something to think about going down that rabbit hole. There will be a fee associated to the management of a loan program should you all choose to shift this from a grant to a loan.
Heard. Thank you for that clarification. I think, again, my opinion is this board needs to grow our accounts and our tools, and the way that we can do that is to generate and operate this like a business itself, even though we are a nonprofit board, quasi-governmental nonprofit board, and we need to grow our revenue streams. One of that is issuance fees, some of that's application fees, some of that could also be loans. I mean, if where SBA may ask for collateral, maybe we just waive those collateral requirements, and we're still beating the market. Just a thought.
Well, I have my thoughts on that,
Yeah,
but you go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking about the way Metro does certain grants in housing. When they file the restricted covenants, they are loans. With the period of time that the restricted covenant's in place, and if you follow all the obligations within it, then it changes to a grant and it goes away. That if we change it to a loan, that kind of changes the whole dynamics of this. And now we're looking at debt to the business. And I don't know, for that amount of money and tracking it, it's going to be very hard.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with you on revenue generation. I mean, again, I shared with this board last year that was before we started this year, when we were in transition, that was one of the main items that when I was meeting with our leadership team, with Metro Legal, with our bond counsel, and once Jamari came on board, I challenged them last year. I didn't know that we were going to have several bond deals coming before us, but I was like, hey, this is an opportunity. I challenge you guys to put something together for this board to review. We need to have our application, our fees updated. They met the challenge. This board approved it. Did not know what we were going to have this year, but I want to make sure we were prepared in case we did. And lo and behold, we've had 3 bond projects come before us, great projects, by the way. And guess what? The revenue generated from those is allowing us to even talk about this. So I'm all for revenue generation. But I would also say for some of these small businesses, these are not huge amounts. So I'm all for continuing to generate revenue. But I don't know that this is the avenue to try to get people to sign up for a $5,000 loan. And obviously on the amount, there's not like there's going to be a huge, we're talking about charging them low interest, but now we've just added a whole bunch of more paperwork to the process. So I think there's other ways that we've already doing that we can continue to generate revenue.
What about a 0% loan that they pay back at the end of their fiscal year, or at the end of 5 fiscal years, whatever that is? I mean, so that way they're not even charging the interest, but we still we get the funds back that then we can then recycle.
Now that, and to your point, Josh, if the amount was $50,000, then I could see going as a loan, because a lot of business could use that as money to really push themselves forward. I was thinking in the back of my mind, that's a pretty good idea. If, let's say it's a 5-year term, we give you, the grant is $10,000, you have 5 years to spend all the money, showing your business where it actually generated income, and then you pay it back interest-free. Now, I think any business would still take it, because that's working capital with no interest, but you just pay back the principal in 5 years or something like that. I think 1 year might be a little hard.
But then it's the tracking piece. But here's the other part I just keep coming back to.
Right.
If we're doing a larger amount, that would be a different story. But we're talking about, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 grant to help these businesses. And again, coming to your point, this is new. If we focus on the industries that Jamari mentioned, we are focusing on the new growth industries, so that will generate more money. Now in the future, if we have more money and we're going to do like a larger program, $50,000, $100,000, then maybe. But I think for this baby steps, really trying to get small businesses and help them, I don't necessarily see the need to do a loan from that standpoint.
I thought one more option, since we're discussing.
Yeah.
I want to take both, because I like Josh's idea to bring the money back. Maybe you have a program where if you take the $5,000, it's a grant. If you want $10,000, $5,000 of it's a grant, but $5,000 you have to pay back in 3 years. That will get some of the money back. And somebody opt to say, I take the whole 10 and $5,000 go back.
I think we also need to look at the cost. Let me ask you, from your standpoint, because give us maybe some background on grants versus loans, because obviously I've been on the board. This is going into year 10 for me. The Metro incentive grants, the big company incentive grants we do that this board has approved previously for some of the large corporations, those are grants. The small business grants that we also did, which the last one's been a while since we've done one, but those were also, whether it was the employee small business grant or the blighted property, those were both grants. So everything has been grants. So what's your perspective on why it was set up as grants versus loans, and kind of what are your thoughts on that?
It goes back to the management process of a loan. Metro does not have a in-house bank that manages loans. We usually outsource that, and when you outsource that, there is an administration fee that a third party is going to charge Metro for handling that. I've seen that fee range from 5 to 20% of the total loan volume. So that could be a pretty hefty fee that you're going to pay just to manage some funds coming back in on the back end. So that's just the way Metro has handled it, is that it's just easier for us to grant it out, have reporting requirements, which you have here at the bottom, just to make sure that the funds are being used the way everybody agreed to them to be used. And at the end, everybody washes their hands and we go back home and start over every fiscal year.
Yeah, I don't want to make it harder than what it should be, and I want to get the hands into the small businesses. And if it's too cloudy, then it kind of defeats the purpose.
I just want to challenge this board to think bigger. Like, how we've done it doesn't necessarily need to be how we always do it.
You're right,
That's true.
You're right,
and
but
if
keep
we
in mind we've never done this. This is the first time.
I think the goal
agree.
is we
But-
need to get the grant up. We need to get to $50,000, something that I think $50,000.
Well, hold on, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm
Let
sorry,
you
Josh.
finish.
Go
I was gonna
ahead.
say, if we look at our other peers across the state, across the country, they manage grants and loans. They do it. So whether or not that happens in-house or we have a third-party reviewer, that's a board discussion. But we have to generate enough revenue. We have to generate more tools. We have to do things differently than we've done them.
I think what
Appreciate your feedback, board member.
I think with Josh, just to comment on Josh saying, if we spend all our money this fiscal year,
It's not all of our money.
Yeah.
We're spending what we've generated this
Right.
year.
So what we
We've
generate.
generated.
But if we don't have another bond come through, then there's no generating income for the next round. So
I can't. You're right.
Yeah, I
So
mean-
here's what I would say to that. I can't speak to
I
what will happen in the future. I know, this board asks questions. Well, what if this? What if that?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah, just throwing it out there.
we don't know.
We don't know.
What
Yeah.
we do know is this year, right? We've generated, because we don't have enough track record, right, where we can estimate. Because this is the first year. Again, we're not doing things the same. This is the first year that we've upped our bond fees and charged the application fees in the way that we're doing it. So that's new. So if you fast forward to 3 or 4 years from now, and we have 3 or 4 years of history, then we would have a history to say, okay, our highest year we've generated X, Y, Z from bond deals. But if you average it out, we're somewhere in here, and then you can forecast. We're not at the position to do that, but we are in a position where we've generated the revenue this year, and we could, pretty quickly help some small businesses with some small, and these are not huge amounts. So I'm not. I guess what I would say, I'm not against loaning. I guess for the target that we're trying to go after, which is the void that is not hitting the Metro grant criteria, for these folks, keeping it simple grant process for them. And again, if we don't like the applications that come and we don't think they're innovative, this board doesn't have to grant the funds.
That's true.
That's how so I'm
Yeah,
not
that is true.
against
I
it.
give
I
you
guess
that, yeah.
for these amounts,
Correct.
for the void we're trying to fill right
Yeah.
now. Anyway.
Yeah, I think we're just trying to think in advance to make it better. One, I think eventually we should have some type of loan mechanism. And two, if we're able to, if we get more bond deals to put the amount higher, have a mixture. But we can do the one thing, if we do a grant, just like MDHA does with their restricted covenants, we can put in there that it is a loan until you go through this period of time. And if you don't do what you say you're going to do with the funds, then we can recover those monies. Because we don't want to put it out there and then they don't do it.
So
Yeah.
here you go. I like that. This is why we have these discussions. I
Yeah.
like that. So here's what I would say. I mean, I think we can get on board with this. So, in all of the grants, right, with Metro, there's some sort of there are reporting requirements, regardless. So here, Jamar did put in some reporting requirements in here.
Okay.
So I'm fine with having some, and obviously this I would defer to legal on this, but I think to kind of get after what we're all trying to get to, I'm fine with having some sort of language in there that, hey, this is a grant, but if you don't meet X, Y, Z, you could be required to repay
Yes.
or something. And again, I'll defer to legal to work on how that needs to be worded, but I think something like that potentially. And the difference with this one compared to like some of the Metro grants we have for the companies, remember those are multi-year
Yeah.
grants.
Yeah.
So if they don't report or don't meet a requirement, then they don't qualify for that year. This grant is not, we're not in a position
One
to
time.
agree to a multi-year grant yet.
Right. It's basically, if you say you're gonna buy some computers, you bought the computers.
That's right. Yeah. We want to make sure that the money's being spent the right way.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Well, I think that's been a fantastic discussion. So we've got several follow-up items. So what I would say is take a look at this. I want to thank Jamari because again, this was something I asked him to kind of put together for us, knowing that obviously these are kind of something that we can do again with money that we've generated for outstanding projects. So really excited about it. Let's try to keep this moving forward because regardless, there will be some lead time there with applications.
Correct.
Once we get rolling. So I would say take a look at it. Here over the next couple weeks, please send your comments to Jamari. If there's any specifically or anything you have a question on, and then we'll regroup on this. We really appreciate it. Excellent discussion today. Excellent. I like the way we're thinking about things. So, all right.
Before we wrap up,
Yeah, I was
can
gonna say
we
chair. Yeah.
we need to get on the agenda.
The housing. So
Yeah.
again, have not forgotten about it.
Okay.
So we'll have that. We'll bring that follow back up here at our next meeting.
Okay.
So we get on that, and also, so have not forgotten. Want to kind of hit this because again, there's going to be some lead time also with this in the
Right.
middle once we put it out there.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right. So save your homework.
Justin does a great job with his, though. I did want to comment on that.
Give me some good reading for the remainder of fall break. All right. Thank you, Jamari. I want to thank Metro ECD, Metro Legal. Thank you, Metro IT, and most of all, thank you, ad hoc committee members, for showing up today in such a nice, good, really great discussion. So I appreciate your work on this today. With that, it is right at 10:06 a.m. We will adjourn this October 19th, 2024 meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee of the Industrial Development Board. Thank you.